Thank you all for joining. My name is Mark Miller, technology consultant here at Ingram Micro for IBM Systems, and happy to be joined by Jim Smith and Frank Hayes from IBM. This is a continuation of our Power 10 enablement from a couple of weeks ago. This one, deep dive technical. Jim will be breaking down more Power 10 with the technical side, and Frank will follow along with expert care messaging. So Jim, I give the floor to you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I have 52 slides in this deck, and we'll spend about 10-15 minutes on each one. And by the time we're done, we'll know everything there is to know about Power 10, or instead we can breeze through and talk about what's missing. So here is what is in this deck. This is in PDF format, and no, I won't send you the PowerPoint version because it's from All Around Seismic. So all of this is available. I've gathered these slides together, put them in an order that seems to make sense to me. And as you well know, Seismic is constantly being updated. So, you're going to have to create your own Power 10 update deck because I'm sure I have errors and omissions. I've already seen a few already. So, a little over a week ago, we talked with Mr. Todd Boyd, and he talked us through the high level, these first few charts, ways to consume power, infrastructure as we always have. Now we can do cloud on-prem, and we can do Power VS. These are all great, continued timeline. And in fact, Power 11 is well underway. And if you have any customers that are anxious to be included in the requirements phase of Power 11, well, talk to your good friends at IBM and Ingram, because that's the kinds of things that are happening now, and be pleased to get an interview for some end user customers. Todd, in fact, talked about this chart as well. I won't. Just incredible speeds and feeds, as always, every turn of the crank. Two types of modules. We have a single chip module and a dual chip module. We'll look at that a little closer. We're using the SCM in the 1014 and then the S22S. We'll talk about those, and then dual chips everywhere else. We continue to make our cores bigger. Our servers get bigger with more cores and bigger cores, unlike our competitors who just do more cores, which costs us more in software. So the quick recap, we did the 1080 in fourth quarter last year, September, and then revved it up in December with a GA1, GA2. We have a similar approach for scale out, not quite as dramatic. We announced on the 12th, we started shipping on the 22nd of last month, and we do have some features, mostly dense memory is coming out in fourth quarter of this year. So think, maybe November 18th timeframe for the deep density memory. And this deck, out in Seismic, we're talking about the enterprise, we're talking about the mid-range, and we're talking about the scale out, 3 separate decks. In the past, we've had a single deck with everything. This deck is kind of that deck for me. Not to spend a lot of time on the 1080, but incredible, up to 240 cores. The capability, the performance per core, larger, and still at 64 tera for memory. Throughout the deck, I have these comparisons. Most are just Power 9 to Power 10, but here's Power 8, 9, and 10 for the enterprise box. Things in green are a competitive advantage. The ARPers is stunning, right? 8,000 ARPers in a 4-node 16 socket system. Unbelievable. And, a 2-node Power 10 has more throughput than any Power 8 that ever shipped. Awesome. So good marketing point. CPW as well. A lot of our power business is IBM high. So we make sure we pay equal play for both I and AIX. So Power 10. Well, we're not going to give I any time of day for the 1050 mid-range server. Significant capability, up to 96 cores now, which is awesome. 16 terabytes of memory, 11 slots, so similar but improved. Here's our highlights at 16 tera maximum memory, and again, here's that GA1, GA2, 8 tera at announced. So for the rest of this quarter and into early next quarter, we'll only have 8 tera availability. All NVMe, no SAS, but SAS is supported outside through SAS drawers. So we do have support for SAS adapters, just not SAS inside. And the 1050 is different from the scale out in how those NVMe drives are driven. You know, we need PCI slots for the JBOF card, what eConfig is calling a backplane, interestingly enough. We do not need any PCI slots to drive NVMe in the 1050. Here is our comparison from before and current. And this takes us to the scale out. So, you know, as promised, I'm going quickly. Frank needs at least 15 minutes or so to talk about PowerCare. So we can do a Q&A at the end on any specifics. Here is the lineup. On the left, we have entry. On the right, we have enhanced performance in scale. Earlier, we had different names, which did make a lot of sense. So brand marketing is listening to those of you and us who have provided feedback. We have the 1014, which is pretty similar to the 914. A little different in processor options, just the 4 or 8, no 6 core options. The 4 core is, you know, IBM I tier 05. The 8 core is tier P10. We have the same restrictions for IBM I. If we're going to run P05 tier, we can have 4 cores, 1 for I, 64 gig of memory, 3.2 tera of disk. Those things haven't changed. We have 5 PCI slots, and we'll look in the deep dive architecture quickly at what that means and things that we'll want to be aware of as we're replacing earlier 814s, 914s. To the right of that is something new. It's an S1022S, and that trailing S can be thought of single socket or small. So what we have is, again, a 4 and 8 core per socket. We have 1 or 2 sockets, so we can have a 4, 8, or 16 way version of this box. And we're using SCM, single core modules. We'll look at that briefly in the architecture as well. The reason for this box is software licensing. So Oracle SE comes to mind as the right database offering for this box, as Oracle loves to count and charge for cores. So other than that, it is pretty comparable to the non-S version of the 1022s. We have 2 terabytes total, 1 terabyte at GA, and back to the 1014, 1 terabyte, just like the 914, but only 512 right now. So if we did need a 1 terabyte box today, we'd still be in the 914. So there's still reasons for Power 9 to hunt, even while Power 10 is announced and available. On the right, we have a couple other boxes, an S22 and an S1024, 1022 and 1024, and an L version of these. So you'll remember we had the HANA flavor of the 922 and 924. They weren't really just HANA, they were Linux. So, we refined that approach, and the L stands for Linux each of these versions. They're functionally identical, same parts, same system. The hypervisor, though, will restrict us in the L flavor to running only 25% of the cores against a non-Linux workload. So if we want to bundle IBM I in the box with Linux for some kind of a hybrid approach, big DB2 in I, we can do that in the same box, have containerization going, LPARs going, but we will pay a lower price for the L version overall because of the way we're allocating costs of software development, those kinds of things. So we have, similar to the 922, we have a 2-socket 2U platform. We have 10 slots, and the slots are evenly defined by each socket, or dedicated to each socket, which is a little different than the Power 9 version. And we do have to accommodate the NVMe driver. So we'll talk about that in the deep dive. We can go up to 4 TB in memory. We're at 2 TB at announce, and we have 8 NVMe bays. We'll need one JBOF card to drive the first 4 NVMe slots. And if we have a 5th or more, we'll need a second. So we'll take 2 of those slots away. We can do an IO drawer in this guy, a full IO drawer. In the 1014, we can do half an IO drawer. So we can accommodate some of the slot challenges. We'll talk more. And then the 1024, this is unbelievable. 2-socket 4U framework, we can go up to 48 cores. And I'm a long time power guy and have been doing server consolidation for forever. And, I was surprised when we started refreshing 780s into 924s, because we crossed from enterprise into scale out. And now with these capabilities, we can go up to 8 TB memory and 48 cores. This is just phenomenal. So lots of power, lots of capability, similar platform to what we knew and loved. We changed memory, and we've done this a couple of times. Remember, in Power 9, we went to industry standard architecture memory to drive down costs. And we have again changed our approach for memory with new differential DIMM technology. And this is an open standard. We're the only ones using it at the moment, but it's open and available to anyone without licensing fees. We expect to see other architectures adopt and use open memory interface in the future. We have better RAS, and we have moved the VRMs onto the card. We have put additional spare DRAMs in place. So, the RAS is enhanced, the capability and speed is boosted, and a key feature is encryption. And we call it transparent memory encryption for a couple of reasons. Transparent to the end user in a couple of ways. It happens without any overhead. There's no software that's running the happen. It's all in hardware on the chips and on the backplane, and there's no keys to manage. This is not going to introduce any operational overhead. So awesome that one less place to worry about exposed or leaking data. We have announced a statement of direction for the 1080 for clustered memory, and other architectures are also pursuing persistent memory. Things like HANA, for example, which uses a in-memory database architecture. Restarting a HANA instance, depending on size, can be challenging. What if that memory was constant and non-volatile and available? And what if other systems could reach in and use that memory? There's incredible capabilities that are in the future of Power 10 and other platforms, but that also creates new exposures and opportunities in the security enhanced or heightened environments we live in, we're future-proof with transparent memory encryption. And then lastly, active memory mirroring was on the mid-range and high end. That's hypervisor memory. And that's where we keep track of and manage all of our partitions. And if a memory failure did happen and it was in hypervisor space, AMM prevents that from taking a box outage, and now that's across the line. So key to know what is the OS support. And here is a reference chart. I don't think we have to talk in detail, but the details are here should you need it. And then a bigger blowout of the I version. So we've got to be 7.3 in order to run Power 10. We're going to run in Power 9 emulation mode, compatibility mode. And some end users, some customers are a little confused by that, right? If I'm running in a compatibility mode, be it 8, 9, does that mean I don't get the benefit of Power 10? And not true, right? We're going to run faster in the enhanced hardware. We're just not going to exploit Power 10 instructions. And we wouldn't be doing that in an older OS anyway. So there, it's not like we're sacrificing all the goodness of Power 10 running in some kind of compatibility mode. So here are the releases that do that. The RPERFs for systems, we had the RPERFs up above for the other systems. Here they are for the scale out, significant improvements. They're also here for the CPW for IBM I, and this is significant. The 2-socket 1022S at 106,300 CPWs is dramatic. We're seeing a better improvement ratio for IBM I on Power 10 than we are for AIX. So same focus on RAS. The power is redundant. We have first failure data capture, instruction retry. We do chip kill, ECC. Everything is here. And now we've introduced active memory mirroring. So let us deep dive into each of the systems quickly and call out things that we need to know, right? We already have, we've talked, some partners, some distributors, and IBMers have been experiencing, what it's like to live in a Power 10 world for a little bit of time now between early ship and announce. The 1014 still does do rack and tower, which is awesome. We can do 4 or 8 cores. We've got 8, differential DIMM slots for up to 1 terabyte of memory with only 512-inch GA. We'll talk a little bit. There's a slide about memory options. It's not an easy thing to try and buy it, with 512 today and go to tear in 4th quarter. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Since we are a 4U platform, we can have 16 NVMEs. So the first 8 will be driven by 1 JBOF card in a slot. If we go past 8, then we'll need that second slot. We'll talk in a minute probably about HA considerations and split backplane, which the concept is gone for Power 10 after being around for forever in Power 7, 8, and 9. We'll talk a bit about availability and capability, RAID, cache, all those kinds of things. We can do 110 in the tower with 4 power supplies, or we can do 220. Here is the format, very similar to what the 914 was. Those are the callouts. And then not to spend a lot of time in system architecture, but I think it's worthwhile understanding how the sockets drive I/O and capability. So each socket throughout the scale-out line drives 5 sockets. which is good. 3 of these sockets, C8, C10, and C11, are identified as the right place to run NVMe storage adapters. So as we try and fit IO into this box, we only have 5 slots. We're going to lose one, or not lose, but use one for NVMe. That gives us 4. And perhaps if we're doing more than 8 drives, then we're going to take 2 slots up. Good heavens, depending on which adapters we have, what their capabilities are, whether they're Gen 3, Gen 4. Although with slots are Gen 5 capable, we have no Gen 5 slots at the moment. It's another future-proof capability. We'll need to think about, where we put things. If we do put a MEX drawer, half a IO drawer out, we will add 5 more slots. We'll consume 1 for the the MEX adapter, so we can get up to 10 slots should we need it. So we'll be spending some time thinking about how to get as much IO into this box as we might want or need. There's 2 processor options, and they tie us to IBM I P groups. So 4 cores for P05, 8 cores for P10, and then here's our memory. And depending on what we choose, and we don't have as many slots. We just have the 8 DIMM slots available. We'll want to think carefully about how we populate this guy. The dense memory, the 128 DDIMMs are available in November 18th. Some integrated storage options. RDX is still around. We do need the JBOF card. We can do a half a MEX drawer. There is a NVMe drawer coming, and not immediately. I think sometime next year, but we can get out to a SAS drawer, the 24 SFF carrier drawer. So there's a ways that we can expand and do more IO. Of course, fiber channel to SAN capability is awesome. Here are those slots again. We care about what goes in which slots, mostly because of the number of connectors that we have. So we're going to need to pay attention to slot placement. So here is our comparison between the 914 and 1014, green being a competitive advantage. So this is the format we'll see for the next 5 systems. We won't spend quite as much time going through each. The 1024, so I jumped to the 4U box to stay in the from the smallest to the largest, and we have 12, 24, 32, or 48 cores per server. This is amazing. And 32 DDIMM slots. Other things, are similar to the architecture. Here is that architecture where instead of a single core module, we have a dual core module, and that gives us the additional member in the 814. We only had 8 OMI slots because we have the second Power 10 core, the socket, dual core module. We have 16 per socket, so we have a total of 32. We see again, we're bringing along 5 more slots. Less concern, we still need those slots for NVMe, but there's more and more availability for MEX drawers. So we can do 2 full MEX drawers off this guy. We have 3 processor options, a 12, a 16, and a 24, which takes us for a system total of 24, 32, and 48, as we said. We have, different focuses for what we're trying to do. So with 48 cores, what we're looking for is the maximum system capability. If we want maximum core thread strength, we'd be looking for the 12 core modules. So, it's important to consider more cores may or may not be better depending on how single threaded our workload is. So, the benchmarks are going to tell us indications, but our particular workload will give us some better guidance. Memory as well, we have a number of memory choices, and we have the last two, the 128 and 256, that would take us up to 8 terabyte and 4 terabyte. Those two options are not until November 18th. Now we can, it's not going to be an announcement. These feature codes are announced and they're available in eConfig. So should you select them, you'll find eConfig taking your CRAD date out into December. I think last time I was fooling with it, but we can expect that to improve a little bit. Again, November 18th is the date that we're throwing around for availability of some of this memory. This is supply constraint. It's not, anything other than that. So making sure we have enough. The comparison between the 924 and the 1024, and again, there was the S924, H924, now the S1024 and L1024. The 1022, we're using, again, the dual core modules, and now we can do 12, 16, or 20 per socket. So 24, 32, 40 cores in a two-year platform. Terrific. We still have the same architecture. So we have our 32 DIMM slots, OMI slots, and we have our 10 PCI slots. Now here is something that we won't spend a lot of time on, but be aware that the depth of the 1022 has increased. Other vendors are as well. So it's 4 inches longer than our previous 2U systems. And that may or may not be an issue. The 1024 and 1014, no change. So, depending on what racks are in use, there is no standard for depth. Probably a good topic for a deep dive call in the future. So just be aware, they're longer, they're deeper. So the processors, as we said, same approach, right? If we're going to use dense cores, 40 cores in the system, we're going to get more out of that system. But if we had single threadedness, Oracle can sometimes still act somewhat single threaded, depending on what capabilities we're using. Then we might want a 24 core system as being more powerful for our architecture solution than the 40 core. So, let's keep an eye on that and make sure we understand which workloads are favoring, which feature code of the processor cores. Memory options, we only have one, the 128. We don't have the 256 as an option. So, we can take this guy up to 4 terabytes, 2 at GA. And we'll want to be careful. Some customers would say, give me 2 terabytes with half the sockets populated, and let me put in the rest later. No, there's, unfortunately, some challenges to doing that. So we'll have to make sure that we think through whatever MES, essentially it's taking the memory out, and the brand's aware of this, and there is some looking into some kind of buyback. No pre-announcement here. I'm just, informing you that we know this is a challenge. People would like to have the memory up front. Comparison between, the 1022 and the 922s. And then, the new guy on the block, this is a single core module with 4 or 8 cores per socket, otherwise functionally identical. So here in the architecture, instead of the second P10 per socket, we are seeing an IO switch. An interesting article by Timothy Prickett Morgan on the Register, I think. the 400. Not sure which of his sites it's on. Which, you know, essentially it's a Power 10 chip with 0 cores active. It's a I/O switch, which, you know, gives us the capability for I/O, but does not give us the enablement for the memory slots. So total, you know, DDIMM slots of 16, not 32. So this looks very much like a 2-socket 1014, if you will, which is interesting. So we do get some relief from just 5 sockets. We get all, from 5 slots, we get all 10 slots in the sky. And competitive advantage is software that licenses by core. 2 options for processor feature codes, and we can't run the 4-core with I. There's been some requests for that, so now is the time for you know, asking for, you know, feature code enhancements, RPQs for things that aren't enabled. So, you know, one, it won't go anywhere to ask for I on 1050. You know, that dog doesn't hunt. However, there might be an appetite for putting I on the EPGR feature code, the 4-core. We'll have to see what happens and where that goes. As you know, as we move a product to its life cycle, you know, there's enhancements and changes. So now might be the time to raise some of those requests. Memory, we have fewer slots, so we can go to 2 terabyte, not 4, like the 1022, 1 terabyte at GA, and then we can go after fourth quarter into the 128 DDIMMs. And here's a comparison of all 3. So the, you know, Power 9 2U2 socket against the Power 10 to 3, you know, Power 10 2U2 sockets. Brief mention, not a lot to be concerned about. We're moving from FSPs to enterprise BMCs, baseboard management controller. We had you know, BMCs in, like, you know, AC922, some of the LC models for Power 9. We're going to BMCs because it's an industry standard. FSBs were proprietary, and the more open we can be, you know, the better for everyone, the ecosystem. So probably at the moment, there's nothing to worry about or be concerned about. We might see some operational enhanced capabilities once BMCs are pervasive. And then finally, in the last couple of minutes I had, it's easy enough to do RPerf calculations, and Precision IT would do a good job of, you know, server consolidation. I've got an HMC scanner output, and, you know, put that into your tool and tell me, you know, your existing Power 7, 8s, 9s can become some number of fewer Power 10s. But I is, you know, we have to be a little more careful with, because of tiers and IO and those kinds. So I have a number of charts that are I based in migration options. So in particular, AIX doesn't have the concept of tiering in the way that IBM I does. So if we are in a P05 tier or a P10 tier, you know, what are our upgrade options and what can we move to? And, you know, it's impressive. Again, Power 10 is very friendly to CPW. If I take a Power 8 lower left-hand corner, P05, and I've got, you know, 9,360 CPWs per core, and I go to a 1014, I'm more than doubling, right? And even if I'm coming from a Power 9, I am doubling my processor. So not that IBM I tends to be CPU bound, but really there's, you know, significant enhancement in CPW capability between Power 9 and Power 10. So here is, a little more complexity. If I'm in a P20 tier, I have to be careful in my 1024, depending on which processor feature code I'm using. A number of those are tied to P30, and we've never seen P30 in scale out before. But in every case, we're going to want to look for the right processor core option, whether it's and the difference isn't great, right? The 3.1 to 4 gigahertz, P30 cores, are not that much advantaged over the there's more of them than the 3.4 to 4.0. So be careful of our IBMI software tiers is the motivation behind these charts. And P10, which is kind of a sweet spot, here are more options for where we want to go to stay either in a P10 tier, depending on how many sockets we need and how many cores we need. So we can move all the way between 3 boxes, the 1014, the 1022S, or the 1022, depending on what our needs are. So that is kind of a decoder ring that will help. So I was able to flash through. I was looking to finish at 40 minutes in, and we're a couple minutes ahead, which was good. Mark, did you want to move on to support options, or stop and take questions on the Power 10 stuff?
I mean, if anybody has questions, feel free to come off of mute while we get Frank set up. Or, Jim's going to stick around, and if you want to drop something in the chat, him or Glenn, who's also in the chat, would probably be happy to help you out.
Yeah, Jim, this is Glenn. You were flying so fast, you accidentally said there are no PCIe Gen 5 slots. I know that's not what you meant, so I just clarified
awesome.
that in the
Thank you.
chat.
No,
you bet.
No, we've got a plethora. We're the only people who have them,
Yep.
but we don't have adapters at the moment because there isn't the I/O to drive them. But thank you, Glenn, for the correction.
You bet.
So Jim, I think you need to stop sharing so I can share. Yep. Okay.
All right, stop. No, that's not. Stop share. There it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Right screen here. There we go. There. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Power Expert Care. All right. Okay, thank you. My name is Frank Hayes. I'm with IBM Systems Support, and I'm going to cover some of the new mid-range and scale-out Expert Care. And if there's questions related to Expert Care in general, I'd be happy to talk to those. So, as Jim mentioned, obviously, we just announced a scale-out Power 10 and mid-range Power 10. The scale-out box has a basic, advanced, and premium Expert Care offering. Mid-range has just advanced and premium. And I'll get into a little bit more detail the different flavors here. But one thing I wanted to point out, and I think we're getting a lot of questions about, is the proactive support offering that is typically attached to our mid-range, like the 950. Is not available for scale out mid-range Power 10. We've kind of restructured the premium Expert Care offering for these two products, or these two product lines, and the sort of the premium content is now part of the premium Expert Care. This is, we did this, try to be a little bit more aligned with the storage Expert Care offerings, and we'll get into details in a minute. I also want to point out, obviously, you don't have this deck yet, but there's Expert Care, seller, and client material out on Seismic. Real quick, Expert Care, I think probably everyone knows Expert Care are It's a new way we're packaging our services, right? They're designed to be attached at, in eConfig, in ePricer at the time of hardware sale. And the expert care offerings are priced as a percentage of the hardware price. And so if we get into the mid-range, minimize my screen here. So again, there's an advanced and premium offering. One thing you'll see different with the E1050 is that the E950 went out with a 3-year 24/7 support hardware support, and you'll see here on the 1050 that the base warranty is now 3-year, but it's 9x5 next business day. It's not the 24/7. And the warranty is sort of it's limited on site, sort of a parts only type, effective warranty, because most of the parts in this box are designed to be customer replaceable units. So we have an advanced offering, right? So we think that the majority of our clients will gravitate towards the advanced and even the premium offering. So the advanced offering takes the 9x5 next business day limited on-site support to 24/7 on-site repair. So we'll have SSRs go out and repair, replace the parts if they fail. The SWAMAs that are attached in eConfig at the time of hardware sale will align to the term of expert care that's chosen. So there's a 3, 4, 5-year advanced, 3, 4, 5-year premium. So if you select a 5-year advanced expert care, eConfig will automatically attach 5-year SWAMA PIDs, to match the term of expert care. The premium offering for mid-range is a little bit different than the premium offering for our E1080. Again, proactive is not enabled, and so with the premium tier, you get that enhanced response time, 30-minute callbacks on SEV 1 and SEV 2s. You get we're calling it a TAM, technical account manager, that you would get with Proactive or CTS. And then what's new on Power is remote code load. So the functionality, the ability to do the remote code load isn't coming until the end of this year. But the premium offering will include 2 updates a year. And then, and until we get the remote code load enabled, we'll obviously, if there's a need, we'll send somebody on site to perform the update. A couple of questions I've gotten on premium and the TAM, clients that have CTS today or Proactive today that already have a DAC code and already have a technical account manager assigned to them, they will continue to use the same DAC code, the same, vocal that obviously knows their IT environment. So they're not getting a second DAC code or a second assigned resource there. How do I move forward? Scale out, advanced and premium are the same on scale out as the mid-range box, but we've introduced a basic expert care offering here that essentially takes the 9x5 next business day limited on site to a 9x5 next business day on site repair. So what that means is, the response times are the same. It's just we'll send an SSR on site to replace the customer replaceable units. And the only other difference here is that the remote code load is only once a year on the scale out boxes instead of twice a year like it is on mid-range. Let me the next slide. So this is just a slide on the high end, right, which has been out since September. Nothing's changed here. I believe that there is some intent to go back and revisit this premium offering on the high end, and perhaps try to make it more like the scale out mid-range. But that's we're still looking at that. And if there's feedback on whether you think that's a good idea or a terrible idea, please let me know. Again, let me flip back to scale out. So the majority of our clients, that buy scale out boxes buy 24/7 warranty service upgrades. we expect those same clients to purchase advanced expert care, right? So they're used to having, and they like to have that 24/7 support. And you know, the warranty service upgrade is not there, but advanced expert care is the option for them. On the mid-range, most of our mid-range, like 950s, go out with 24/7 support and proactive. And you know, those clients that typically buy proactive, we would expect to purchase or attach this premium expert care. And other services that are available, machine setup services are service packs that are also available in eConfig. These are relatively new on Power. You know, if you have clients or partners that don't have, you know, a robust staff to perform install services, you know, these are pretty reasonably priced offerings for scale out mid-range that can be, you know, the fixed price that can be attached in eConfig. Media retention and hard drive retention is also a service pack available in eConfig. And GTMS, or Global Total Microcode Support, we used to call it Microcode Support Services, is going to be available in Conga. It is not a service pack.